All right, let's have a look at setting up and doing some of our other components, like our leg shape here. Now, I've brought up my grid here, and this is going to come in really handy once again, once we're actually in here and our grid is set up using our command colon or semicolon key to bring that up. And it's going to play an important part in making sure we align all this up. So I'm going to zoom in and let's have a look at this leg component here. Now I'm going to use a combination of shapes and paths to try and build sections of this. So jumping in, let's just build an ellipse there. Switch that over to a rectangle tool. And I don't want to get too bogged down in the details to start with, but I'm going to get the basic shapes for this. And close up that shape there. And I'm going to grab the pen tool. And again, holding down Shift so we can continue to draw. Just going to close up that shape. Not the best one. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning up with the direct selection tool there. Grab those handles. So should have been a little bit more precise with that. All right, so let's have a look at this. Actually, let's just do this shape around here as well. Let's grab the pen tool for that as well. Don't be afraid to zoom in as well. Make sure we get holding down Shift. And let's create this shape here. Oops. Put it over the top there. Now I have the guides turned on at the moment. It may not be the best idea when you're actually drawing this, and mainly because it can sometimes sort of lead you astray. And I'm just going to close that shape off. Great. Now I'm going to select all of these. Direct selection tool. Fantastic. Got to go to my shape build tool. There he is there, Shift M, and I'm just going to isolate some of these shapes. So I have that sphere there. I'm going to link those two. I want this is a separate part. These ones need to be connected. This one's fine. This one's fine. And let's get these out of here. So selecting these. Actually, one more. Let's do a quick clean up here. They can sneak in there. Great. And let's right click and group those together and move them out. Cool. So trying to get this leg component here, if we look, it's actually got a bit of depth to it and all the rest of it. Could be using my photo references, but sometimes you just need to go on the fly with this. And I'm going to put it over here on R2. So essentially this is now going to be a left facing. Because this side it will be right facing, but it's no left facing. So I'm going to go ISO left. I'm going to do its mathematics, and there it is. Now I'm going to duplicate this, and again, the quickest one for doing this is holding down the Alt key, bring up this little white selection arrow there, and I'm going to move this along. Now, this is where our grid really comes into play, because I want to make sure that this is going to help me guide where this is going to be placed. So you can see there, let's see if we can get this in a central location. I'm actually looking at, in this instance, little square here. I'm going to try and line that up so it is on this guide heading this way. And I'm going to do the same with the other one, because I actually do need to make sure these line up on the correct angle. If I don't, my angles are going to be all messed up. So that one's there, that one's there. And that's fairly close. You know, we might need to move it in a bit, but and you've got to make sure it's, when you do something like this, you just set on it, because transforming it once it's been built is a little bit of a mess. So there we go, we've got those two there. Let's close in the gaps. Again, I'm going to jump to my pen tool here, and it's literally going to be a matter of joining up the lines and then shape builder tool. So once again, holding down Shift, click on and make some shapes. Again, we can just close in the main corners for this. Once you've closed in, start creating the next one. And these can be a little bit tricky trying to figure out where the top part's going to go. But see how you go. There is a action key for this, but we may not be able to actually install that. And I'm just going to close off the shape here as well. You can actually get Illustrator to help you close off shapes like so. Let's close these ones off before we get too carried away with the other ones. Once again, Shape Builder tool, Shift M will bring you that. And we don't need to see the back facings of this, so I'm just going to zip around here with my Shape Builder tool, close that off. This one here doesn't need to be there. And I'm just going to have to rebuild those shapes. Doesn't take too long with the Shape Builder tool, which is kind of cool. Oops. These ones to be rebuilt. That one. I don't want to get too carried away because I am going to be doing a few more of these, but as you can see, we can pretty quickly start getting those shapes built nicely. Back to my pen tool, and let's close off these shapes here. Close. There's a weird one here, but it doesn't really matter. And we do have an end one here. Now, Illustrator should, if we had it as a transparency, we should be able to pick this up. But otherwise, we can just use our guides to get a good idea of where that's going to be. It's going to be hidden anyway, so let's close that one off. Fantastic. Once again, select Shift M for your shape builder and start building some shapes. Should be able to quickly zip through all of these and build those shapes pretty quickly. Keep an eye out for little escape ones. It does happen. And there we go. We have a leg component, all pretty quick. And of course, don't forget, you can always jump back into these and reapply gradients as required. You can shift select the whole heap of them and get them to apply like so. Don't forget to right click after selecting them and group them. So now we have specific components, and we can start seeing this getting built fairly quickly. And if we want to do the other side, guess what? Well, using our grid, make sure it lines up, move it across, and arrange. Send it back, and we're starting to get it down pretty quickly. Other options as well. You can start building some other assets in here, adding textures, popping some of these details out. Now these can be a little bit tricky ones on the curve, but see how you go with those. And looking at getting these little vent panels and stuff like that. It's going to be quite interesting as well. So once again, one of the reasons why I created this one is to try and give you some ideas of creating cylinders as well, and also creating rectangles and shapes, so we can get some curves happening as well, also by tracing around. Now we do need to simplify, but that is part of the fun. Cool. So I'm actually going to tackle this little vent panel here for you as well, just to give you an idea of how to get some depth happening for this. So a couple of shapes involved with this one. First of all, we get the rectangle shape. Great. And once again, it may be paid to actually turn the visibility on for these as you create them. So rectangle shape there. Switch over to the ellipse tool, and let's draw those in. Like so. And I'm going to quickly jump back to my selection tool, and let's do a duplicate of that. It should be about the same size. And great. So I can now select both of those. Let's shift them off to the side. I have lost my ellipse tool. actually duplicate them. This is a good start. Make sure these duplicated. Let's select on those, group, and let's shift out of there. Cool. All right, I'm going to add, now that I'm out and about, I'm going to select on those. Let's drop in our world famous gradient, and let's do a transform on this into isometric. Now, I'm going to have this along the front panel here, which means that we are actually doing it from the right-hand side. If this was a cube, this would be the right-facing plane. So let's select on those, and I'm going to go ISO right, and there we have our starting point. So I'm going to grab, specifically using my direct selection tool, these two sections here, and I'm going to duplicate them. Again, holding down Alt is one way of doing that. And let's group those two, and let's duplicate them out like so. Now, I want to make sure that as I'm moving them, I'm following this line of the isometric grid. So I actually have these slightly off. If we look at the grids from here, these need to be moved up slightly. I'm just going to move those up, try and keep them in line. Again, you can move your originals for this as required. And I haven't actually selected them properly, so let's just try that again. I'm going to do a copy and paste. It's acting a bit weird. It might be because of the grouping, but let's just going to separate these items. Okay, let's put a little duplicate in there, which is what's causing the havoc. So I've actually got a duplicate of the object. There we go. Any more hiding in there? No. Cool. All right. Really not liking the duplicate. All right. I'm just going to try with the individual object. It's being a bit weird. Great. So that one's lined up. In fact, I'm going to delete the bottom one. We can always move that into play. And I'm just going to make sure that my top objects share the similar grid as far as distance. So I'll make sure that these top points here are in some good form of alignment before I go and clean them up. So it's kind of there, it's kind of there. That's getting pretty close. Move this one out of the way a little bit more. Great. Pen tool. Let's close off these shapes. And the base as well. Select. Shift M for our shape builder tool. Too far. Just a few little weirdy bits out here. We can get rid of these if we go to our pen tool, hover over a point that we don't need, and that will delete those. So up here, for example, we can do a bit of a cleanup if we get too many stray points. So once again, just using the pen tool. Go too far, it's going to do something weird like that. So that's kind of getting there. Let's do an in-depth version of this. So I'm going to grab this outside version of this, and once again, copy and paste. Let's scale that down. So I'm using the V key and let's scale. And I'm going to create a sense of this actually is sort of an outer ring situation like that. It's kind of weird having the stroke this big, but that's all part of the fun, I guess. Great, and with a copy and paste, and let's reduce it again. scale that one up a bit. And that's kind of getting there. So once again, we select those, Control M for our shape builder tool. And now it's just going to be a matter of figuring out which lines we are connecting. So those ones, which is pretty good. A couple of close ones in there, but not too bad. Once we're out from there, we do have the option of our direct selection tool, gradient. We can apply all that kind of fun stuff. You may wish to open your gradient panel if you haven't already. And this is where we can select an object and drop in a different gradient as well. Get some cool things happening along with that. So that's kind of cool. Let's add a few more effects. So if we do look at this here, it does look kind of like a grill setup. So to play around with this, let's create a rectangle. That's sort of that cool orange color. So let's change that over. Nice regular gradient. And again, this is a right facing one, so it's ISO right, like so. And I kind of get the impression these gradients are actually going to be at a slight angle. So I'm going to grab, using my direct selection tool, I'm going to grab the two bottom vertices, and I'm just going to move that so it's at a slightly different angle than normal. You grab the whole object, let's duplicate that down. And you can use your arrange to decide which one's going to be on top, which one's going to be on bottom. I'm going to reduce the stroke a little bit there. It is fairly low at the moment, but again, it's going to be relevant to the size of your image. Let's try about 0.1 pixels. Just want to get a little bit more detail as we go in. And then once again, let's close this off with the pen tool and create a closed shape. Select them all, Control M. Let's finish up the shape. I had a few little faux pas with it, but I don't think anyone's going to notice this in the big scheme of things. And there we go. So it's kind of getting there. There's a few little other glitchy bits that I'm not too keen on. I didn't quite line up some of the points as well as I'd like to. But, you know, that's not the worst. I'm going to grab my quick lasso tool. I'm just going to grab these points here. They do look like they're already selected. And I'm going to jump in and jump into my scale tool here. And I might actually just just do this manually. My selection tool. I'm actually going to try and move some of these points individually. So I just kind of want to give it the idea that it's got sort of a narrowing on the edge. I'm just going to try and grab these top parts. Hey, steady hand. Jump down on my direct selection tool. I'm just going to manually move that down. And trying to get a sort of tapered edge for that. And don't forget, you've got to merge these, group them so that they stick together. So right click, group, great. And let's bring this into our event area. So I'm going to create duplicates of this. And again, keeping in mind that we do want to use our alignment tool. Now these are placing them sort of above each other each time I do it, so it's not that complicated. For artistic license, I'm actually going to I kind of want to be able to see the orange effect happening, so I might just limit how many events I actually put in, keeping in mind that we're trying to keep to the alignment of the grid here, like so. Great. kind of working, and I'm just going to move these in a little bit. Great. Delete the excess ones, and you can start seeing how quickly, once you create some basic shapes, you can just start reusing them. Let's select that object again. And once again, shape builder tool. Let's build some shapes. Now, one of the things to remember with the shape builder tool is not only do we get the option to hold down Alt and subtract areas, which definitely comes in handy. When we do build objects, it is going to sort of remove some of what you may have perceived is going to be a gradient. So I'm going to kick out the gradient completely, but if you've gone, I've created this shape and that's definitely the gradient I'm going to go with, you might be a little bit disappointed when you use this tool because it's sort of going to go to whatever the last default is for that. So keep that in mind when doing that. And a couple of extra little sections there, clean up. Not terrible. And there we have our little R2D2 grid section. Cool. All right, I'm going to ungroup this because this back area keeps linking up. I'm going to move it across over here. Let's take that separately and regroup. Great. And move that there and let's do a duplicate below. Move it up a little bit and arrange, center back. Cool. Grab this one, arrange, center back, and let's put these all in place. The grid's trying to snap it in there, but anyway, get the basic idea. Select them all again, and guess what? We're grouping again. So a lot of grouping, a lot of moving. It's always good to have duplicates around as well in case you mess something up. You go, that's a good asset. I'm going to reuse that. Place on your character, and once again, we're starting to get a little bit more detail popping in from this. So continue on and see how you go.